We are following breaking news out of Clovis, New Mexico. The Curry County Sheriff's Department is continuing to look for 8 inmates who escaped from the Curry County Adult Detention Center at around 9:45 p.m. last night. Of particular concern to the Sheriff's Department is 23-year-old Edward Solis, who is a convicted murderer.
Welcome to Greatest Prison Escapes. I'm your host, Billy Hayes. I know a little about escaping from prison. On October 2nd, 1975, I escaped from a Turkish prison 5 years into a life sentence. The story of my escape was the subject of my book and the Oscar-winning film, Midnight Express. Whatever got us there, everyone in prison is thinking of one thing: getting out. This series is about those who make the ultimate decision, seeking freedom at any cost. Detention centers. They're transitional facilities where people are held while awaiting trial or sentencing. They're not built for long-term incarceration. That's what prisons are for. They aren't always as secure as they should be. And hardened criminals know it, which is why they are staging areas for dramatic prison breaks by whatever means necessary. Curry County is a rural county in southeastern New Mexico. Population 48,000 people. Clovis is an agricultural community located in Curry County, noted for its role in early rock music. It's also where the county's adult detention center sits. On the night of August 24th, 2008, 8 inmates with lengthy rap sheets for violent crimes escaped from Clovis. It sent panic throughout the American Southwest.
Escapees are extremely dangerous. First of all, they're criminals. They can be homicidal, suicidal. Maybe they're looking to end it all. So in these situations, they put the community and law enforcement, everybody involved, in extreme danger.
Most shocking was Edward Solis, who was only 21 years old. Solis was 18 and had dropped out of high school when he got into an argument with a 15-year-old student named Ruben Perez. But Solis only saw one person in the bedroom. Sleeping just below the window he looked through was Ruben Perez's brother, Carlos. Carlos died in his bed, one day short of his 11th birthday. Before he had turned 20, Solis had been sentenced to life plus 56 years, and already knew that only a miracle or only a bold escape could prevent him from dying in prison. At age 19, Larry McClendon Jr. was only 2 years younger than Edward Solis. He was every bit as bad and reckless as Solis. McClendon was awaiting trial for the botched robbery in a second-hand store. The clerk, Emmett Salisbury, grabbed the gun he had stashed beneath the cash register. McClendon was in Clovis, awaiting trial for armed robbery and Salisbury's murder. Solis and McClendon were 2 of the most violent felons at the detention center, both of them bound for maximum security at the Penitentiary of New Mexico in Santa Fe County. Their future long-term residents had seen some of the most violent prison riots in U.S. history. In 1980, inmates took over the facility, now called Old Main. Before the bloodshed and savagery ended, 33 inmates were dead and a dozen guards seriously injured.
I've been scoping this place out since I got here.
Yeah, I heard it ain't as bad as Santa Fe, though.
See that camera?
Yeah.
Only 3 of those on the outside of the whole building. I count 20 inside.
Talking about breaking out?
I'm planning to die in prison. You?
Nah, but a bus come once a week to take people upstate to Santa Fe.
I got an idea how to miss that bus.
In a jail, in a penitentiary, in a correctional setting, every corner you look at, you should be looking at it with security in mind.
Solis and McClendon were not geniuses, but they were streetwise and adept at finding weaknesses in anything that benefited them. Two of the youngest conmen in Clovis could not have agreed more with the Curry County manager's assessment. The facility was rife with weaknesses. One of Solis's cellmates was Luis Chavez. At only 18 years old, he was charged and awaiting trial for aggravated burglary, tampering with evidence, and extreme cruelty to animals. Solis's other cellmate, Ronaldo Enriquez. Barely 19, Enriquez had been indicted for burglary and assault. Facing his first big stint in prison, he was unstable and he was scared.
You noticed it too? It's a door. It leads to the roof.
He's right. I saw a plumber go into a closet on the side. I'm pretty sure this door's in that closet.
For Solis, it was like winning the lottery, a way to escape without being seen or confronting guards. They had found a weakness that could make escape possible. Solis had earlier noticed the lack of cameras, especially on the outside, where only 3 were in use. Escape was possible if Solis and McClendon could somehow get over the walls.
Hey, yo, I slid into the closet on the other side of the wall.
How'd you do that?
The plumber, he leaves the key in the lock or on a hook in the maintenance room.
I'm starting to like you, McClendon.
But yo, here's the best part. There's no ceiling to the closet.
You see all the way to the roof.
It's as close to heaven as we'll get.
Solis knew they'd need a crew. Finding one in a transient facility like Clovis, where inmates arrived and left every day, was a challenge.
You sure you can trust them?
Trust is a big lie. They'll do what I say because they're scared not to. This is Enrique and Chavez. We're busting out. You want in?
I'd be lucky to get 10 years. I'm in.
Now we gotta figure out which of those pipes runs onto our pod.
It's that cluster over there.
How do you know that?
I worked in construction for a while. Those are plumbing vents. Water won't flow unless there are vents to let air in. Those are for the showers and toilets in our section.
McClendon swiped a set of keys from a plumber who left them hanging in a door. Once McClendon let Solis and Enriquez into the closet, Solis climbed the pipes all the way to the ceiling. He realized with a chisel, a saw, and a lot of time, they could bust their way onto the roof of the prison. The execution of his plan was daunting. He had to cut through the jail roof and somehow rappel down the outside walls to freedom.
We need chisels, handsaws, more than one. The wood and shingles will dull everything. Unless we can find a chainsaw with a 100-foot extension cord.
Yeah, we gotta figure out how to get rid of all that stuff.
The debris.
The debris? Really?
The dust might tip off the guards, and if it piles up, it'll stop us from getting down.
We're gonna need more manpower.
Too dangerous.
Ain't nothing about this that ain't dangerous. There's a wild man that's down there. I used to bunk with him till they moved me up. Thank God.
He was describing Javier Zapata. He was only 19 and facing trial for shooting at his wife while her 5 children were nearby. He was impetuous, unpredictable, and willing to take risks, which could make him a good choice or a dangerous one. And Solis knew it. Also in the pod below was Victor Apodaca. He was 29. He would be the gang's oldest member by 10 years. Apodaca had pled guilty to kidnapping, aggravated battery, and drug trafficking. He was awaiting transfer to the maximum security in Santa Fe County. Apodaca was street tough and jail savvy to the core. In and out of trouble for longer than Solis had been alive. He would be a tough sell and a tougher partner. But Solis knew he had one thing going for him. A chance to avoid dying in prison would be hard for Apodaca to refuse. Federal and state governments pour huge resources into high-tech, maximum security prisons. At the bottom of the incarceration scale are rural county jails, like the one in Clovis, New Mexico.
And one of the big issues is the facility and how it's being maintained and used and designed. And if they try and short gap a particular vulnerabilities or building, they fix something and it's not done right, or they don't look at the greater blueprints, it can, in this case, as you've seen, create a vulnerability that makes escape almost easy.
Something you can do for me, Solis?
We gotta wait to bust out of here.
Give me the short version.
We gotta wait to get to the roof. We can cut through it, slide down the back wall.
Your pal smoking something I don't know about?
I'll tell you what, Grandpa. I'll come visit you after the lights out, fill you in on some details.
Be real slick if you could pull that off.
I hope I didn't wake you guys.
What Solis and the others were now planning had considerable echoes to another legendary prison break. 3 prisoners in Alcatraz used a similar avenue in their escape, a corridor between walls that carried utility pipes. But that corridor was flat. Solis and crew would have to climb up 40 feet of iron drain pipe, then cut a hole through the wooden ceiling and then the thick shingles on top of that. A hole big enough for them to climb through. And while the 3 prisoners in Alcatraz took 18 months to chip their way to the road to freedom, the Clovis 8 would have 48 hours.
Your ex-girlfriend's already shacked up with your primo.
Michael England, awaiting trial for tampering with evidence and felony possession of a firearm. The gun in England's possession was used by his pal McClendon to kill the clerk at the second-hand store. McClendon brought him into the group, number 7 of the Clovis 8. Now it was time to take advantage of the building repair problems.
In a correctional facility, in a penitentiary, anything that you do, whether it's removing a door, painting a door for that matter, everything has to be done with the cognizant thinking of security. Is painting a door going to be secure? We all know that painting a door isn't going to secure anything.
As the day of the escape approached, Solis believed that Lady Luck would reveal herself. He convinced the older Apodaca and his cellmate Zapata that his was the best and only possibility for escape. Their escape tunnel to the roof also connected their cells and made it possible to visit every night after lights out. Victor Sotelo was 26 and another of the seemingly incorrigibles at Clovis. Sotelo awaiting trial for aggravated assault and the stabbing of a man who had survived the savage attack. Every member of the Clovis 8 had a job to do, exploit a weakness. Everyone had access to something useful. They stole things no one would miss and repaired broken items they fished from the trash.
We go for tomorrow, 1 hour after lights out.
If anybody messes up, you'll find your body in the closet.
Every prison break is fraught with fear. Fear of failure and spending a life behind bars. And the fear of being killed during the escape. Time slows to a standstill in prison. It teaches you patience. Deciding to run changes everything. Patience fades, and every second is agony. After barely a week of planning, the tension and fear were sky high. It was awkward, painfully uncomfortable, and tedious. It went on for hours. The chute filled with dust and choked everyone. Under normal conditions, anyone would have quit. But fear produces adrenaline, and adrenaline can produce endurance beyond human norms. The most difficult part of the plan, access to the roof, had reached a tipping point. It took over 7 hours to cut through the roof. Enriquez, who did most of the work, was exhausted. Once they were on the roof, they jumped onto the fattest branches of a pine tree whose trunk was 3 feet away. From there, it was a simple matter of climbing to the ground. After many torturous hours of chopping and sawing through the roof of the detention center at Clovis, New Mexico, 8 violent felons, including 2 known murderers, were on the loose.
You have different complexities. Instead of 1 or 2 escapees, you have actually 8. So this expands the investigation, number 1, into finding where all these escapees are going. Are they working together, or they just came together, or was it an opportunity, or was the planning led by one individual?
Pleasure working with you, cabrones. Hasta luego.
The first capture occurred within 2 hours. Apodaca, for all his street smarts, had made no plan and had no contacts for help.
8 inmates busted out of jail in New Mexico last night. 7 are still on the loose. Police say the men used homemade tools to actually cut a hole in the roof of the Curry County Detention Center in Clovis. Police captured one of them overnight, but take a good look at these mugshots of the others that are still on the lam. Edward Solis, on your lower left, is serving life for killing a 10-year-old boy. Larry McClendon's awaiting trial in a murder case. The rest, well, they're all suspects in other violent crimes.
True to form, Ronaldo Enriquez sought refuge in Lubbock, Texas, his old stomping grounds. He was arrested on August 25th, barely 1 day after escaping. At about the same time on August 25th, federal marshals in Cactus, Texas received a tip about Javier Zapata. There were now 3 of the Clovis 8 in custody. With information attained at the Clovis Detention Center, most likely from someone not fond of Victor Sotelo, he was arrested with a struggle on August 28th. 4 down, 4 to go. McClendon's mother, Melody, went on television to plead for his surrender, but police surveillance caught her sending clothing and supplies to him. She was arrested, but McClendon slipped away.
If you hide out with loved ones or friends, you're putting them at risk of being injured or killed and being prosecuted for aiding and abetting, and they'll end up in jail as well.
Border Patrol agents were on high alert for fugitives crossing the border. SWAT teams and additional investigators from the federal and regional agencies had joined the massive manhunt. On October 7th, a police wiretap on Larry McClendon's mother, Melody, uncovered his location when he called to ask for medicine. He was exhausted and claimed he was about to surrender.
So far, 3 inmates are still at large. Those are convicted killer Edward Solis, Michael England of Clovis, and Luis Chavez of Albuquerque.
Shortly after McClendon's recapture, Michael England made contact with investigators in Clovis. He asked police to drop the charges against his mother, who lied to police about having made contact with him. The Clovis DA scoffed at the deal, knowing they had a bead on England, and it was just a matter of time. Several days later, Michael England was recaptured on October 13th. The Clovis police were tipped off that he was hunkering down in an apartment complex in the 500 block of Pyle Street and arrested him and 3 other people who were harboring him without incident. Luis Chavez, one of Solis's cellmates, had been hiding in Texas and had just returned to Clovis to visit family and friends. Yes, he was homesick. On December 8th, despite everyone in town recognizing his face, he ventured out and was then spotted in a grocery store. Police followed his car and he was arrested without any struggle. 7 of the Clovis 8 had been captured without incident, several of them in the town of Clovis itself. But ringleader Edward Solis had planned his getaway as well as he engineered the escape. It frustrated authorities who considered him the most violent and dangerous of the group. They could not have been more accurate. On December 19th, 2011, federal marshals added Solis to their 15 most wanted fugitives list. He was captured in Chihuahua, Mexico almost a year later, October 4th, 2012. American authorities learned of his exploits from Mexican colleagues. While hiding in Texas, Solis was introduced to members of the notorious Zetas cartel along the Mexican side of the border. For more than 5 years, he had worked as a sicario, a hired gunman and paid killer, for one of the most vicious drug gangs in Mexico.
Solis was ready to go the distance. You know, when you're a sicario, you're not second guessing what it is that you're going to do. You're not thinking about, is this wrong? Should I do this? You have an objective, and that objective will be met.
After his extradition to the U.S. in 2014, he had another 15 years added to his life sentence. Sweeping change came to Curry County Detention Center in Clovis after an investigation revealed its appalling conditions. Prisoners had been able to keep their cells from locking by using dominoes and wet toilet paper. The open plumbing closets that allowed inmates to roam freely at all hours were closed permanently. New officers and support personnel were hired. Dozens of new cameras were installed. The jail itself got a thorough upgrade. Fortunately, no one was killed or seriously harmed in the escape. I'm Billy Hayes. Join us again next time on Greatest Prison Escapes.